No, no, no. You're learning math all wrong. Maybe you think you're bad at math. Maybe you think math is useless. Maybe you think math is just memorizing formulas and solving random problems that have no real application to real life. Maybe you can just never remember what you're taught or what you write down in your notes, no matter how hard you study. Maybe it's not math. Maybe it's you. Did that point hit hard? Sorry. In this video, I want to talk about 3 things that you could be possibly doing wrong when you are trying to learn math. So if you previously nodded your head, or maybe just raised your eyebrows a little bit, then you might be guilty of learning math wrong. And that's exactly what I want to cover for you in this video. 3 things that you might be doing that is sabotaging your learning and preventing you from actually getting the most out of your math class as well as from your math teacher. The first thing I see from students that are trying to learn math and are struggling is that they're not doing it constantly. Now, again, think about it. If you're learning math and it is something brand new, you need to be doing it often, consistently, and as soon as possible from what is being introduced. So therefore, if you have a class in the morning, I would highly recommend doing your homework in the afternoon, or at least as soon as possible that you can do it. I don't care if you have to do it during another class. I don't care if you have to stay after school and do it. Try to do the homework as soon as possible. Because what often happens when you're learning something new is that you will quickly forget all the little intangibles that went on during class. And even though you might have your notes and you might feel confident, oh, I remember how to do that, or oh yeah, this made sense today, a lot of times those thoughts and ideas are quickly forgotten when it actually comes down to doing the work. I vividly remember when I was in high school having this happen to me all the time. I'd go to math class, I'd be like, oh, I understand this. I was taking my notes, and I'd be like, you know what, I understand class today. So you know what, I'm not gonna do homework until late at night. And then I remember I'd go through my sports and go through dinner and do everything else I had to do once I got home. And then late at night, before the next school day, I would sit down and do my homework. And I just remember staring at the work, wondering, how the heck do I do this problem? I would completely forget everything that I learned during class. I'd look at my notes and I'd have absolutely no idea how to do them. And it was frustrating. It happened to me time and time and time again. And it wasn't until I realized that mistake I was making was waiting so long to do my work that I actually started to see a difference. See, when I was in college, I brightened up a little bit. And after I would take every single day after math class, I'd immediately go in the tutor lab and complete my homework. 1, this allowed me to get my work done while the information was fresh. And then 2, it allowed me to actually study a little bit later at night to quickly review everything that I learned. I kind of had to double study a little bit for math because math was a struggle for me growing up. Now, in addition to doing your work as soon as possible, you also want to do your work as consistently as possible. I get questions all the time, like, how long should I be doing my math homework? Like, should I spend 1 hour, 2 hours? Like, when should I do it? And again, the real answer, guys, is it's all going to depend on everybody's unique circumstance. But I always recommend to students to do math every single day. If you don't have math class every single day, you should be doing some work every single day. Maybe the days that you have class, you're doing your homework. Maybe on the off days, you should be doing spiral review. You should go back over your previous notes and review and practice old problems. Go back over old tests and quiz. Always be studying, always be doing some math work. It can take 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 30 minutes. Maybe you want to be a math major and you're taking an hour to 2 hours. I don't know, but every day you should be doing math. Just don't be guilty of doing math the only times that your teachers give you math homework. You should always be doing work. You should always be doing it. Even if it's for a quick little 5-10 minute review, stay consistent. Because the thing is, when you do the work immediately and when you do the work consistently, you're going to be immersed within the concept. It's going to be a lot harder for you to forget the material, especially when it matters the most on the tests and the quizzes. Now, once you start being consistent with doing your work every single day, the next thing is don't rely on tips or tricks. I get it. They get a lot of views, and sometimes it just makes a certain concept or problem very easy to follow or understand. I get it. They get a lot of views. My short form views stink. But I get it. A lot of times tips and tricks help you be able to follow a process or solve a certain problem easily. And not all tips and tricks are bad. But a lot of the times what happens is when students rely on the tips and the tricks, they avoid or never actually get into the basic understanding of the material that they need. And then guess what? When they need to rely on that understanding, it's nowhere to be found. They used and abused the trick to get them what they needed. And therefore, when they needed it most, it jumped ship. Because here's the thing about tips and tricks. They're really, really easy to remember, and they're really, really easy to forget. And if you don't have a conceptual understanding of why you're using those tricks or how they work, you're exposed to them failing you. Because a lot of times they work in one situation, but they're not going to work in another situation. And that's why a lot of times you'll see problems on a math test that is completely different than maybe you got on your homework or on your quiz. Because yeah, teachers play that game too. Sometimes they know a trick can work for one certain type of problem, so then they'll give you a different type of problem to see if you actually understand the material or if you're just relying on the trick. Me, little teacher. And trust me, if there's anybody that knows about relying on tips and tricks, it's me, myself. Like, that's basically how I got through high school, was I would just learn what is the fastest, easiest way for me to be able to do a certain problem so that I could get a certain grade on a test or quiz, so therefore I could pass the class. It wasn't until I got into pre-calculus where those tips and tricks just didn't work anymore, and I started to begin failing. And then I realized, holy crap, I don't know anything. I was amazed by how little I actually truly understood. I really had a very little conceptual understanding of what was going on. Now, don't get me wrong. If you just have one more class, one more test or quiz, and you're just trying to get by, you're not going to become a math teacher. You're not going to become a math major. You're probably never, ever going to take math ever again. Well, then, hey, do what you need to do. You do you. This is some general advice for students that are learning math, not for someone who needs to pass one class at the end of the year. However, the advice still stands. I would much rather you focus your time and attention on learning the concepts than trying to rely on something that you're easily going to forget in a week or two. Because here's the thing, guys. A lot of students think that they're learning math wrong. If you're guilty of doing these first two things, or you're not guilty of doing these first two things, you still could be learning math wrong. Sometimes we're learning math wrong because the way that we're thinking about how learning math should be. Somehow, somewhere, somebody made this rule that everybody had to learn math at a certain grade level during a certain class by the end of the semester or the end of the course. And guess what? People just abide by it. And they realize that, hey, if I don't have a great understanding of the material by this point, then I'm stupid. I can't learn math. Math is bad. I hate math. Math is boring. Math stinks. Math sucks. Math is just not for me. I'm not a math person. But who made these rules? Math people, administration, teachers. But that's it, guys. That's reality. So many of us are so hard on ourselves when we don't understand something on a given timetable, and that timetable is unrealistic for our own needs. The third thing we need to do is give ourselves time to learn the information. We don't expect that once somebody passes Spanish 1 that they can go to a Spanish-speaking country and speak natively with people without making any mistakes. No, right? No, speaking a different language is a lifelong endeavor. Yes, we have to immerse ourselves in the culture and in the language, like tip number 1. We don't want to rely on certain tips or tricks. We could easily say the wrong thing, right? So we want to make sure we understand the foundations of the language and how it's used and how we can apply it. But number 3 is we give ourselves time because it's a learning process. I understand grades need to be due and school needs to close once in a while, but in reality, so many of us are so hard on ourselves for not understanding math at a certain period of time. And the reality is, we don't all learn math at the same time as everybody next to us. Yes, we can work harder. Yes, we can do more problems. We can study better. But that still does not mean that I am going to learn math at the same rate and at the same quality as Joe and as Sandy. So don't write yourself off if you start to struggle. Keep on working at it. Sometimes what I like to tell students are, if you have some certain basic understanding of something, move on. You can always come back to the material later. I love getting comments from people that are adults now and have gone back to school and enjoy learning for what it is, learning. Because once we take the pressure that we have to learn within these constraints, sometimes it just ruins the whole learning environment for us. I wish I could eliminate that for all of us, but that's a whole nother topic and a whole nother video. The best I can give you as some advice is to keep coming back to material. Because here's the reality. Once you learn something, maybe you don't have a full, hard conceptual understanding of it. But if you keep on moving forward, the more you're going to learn. And then by the time you come back to it, the more things are going to make sense. Have you ever had that epiphany when you're learning, you're sitting in class, and then finally, like, the teacher says something or you're doing a math problem, you're like, oh, now I get it. And it was like 2 weeks later on the last chapter's test, you're like, now that problem makes sense. Some things just take a little time. But that's it, guys. I always used to joke that I would ace all of my math classes if I was able to take the test like 2 weeks later, because I always felt like 2 weeks after I took the test is when I actually started to really understand the material. It's weird how it works that way. I mean, why do you think so many students say, oh, you teach so much better than my teacher? Do I really? I don't think I do. I do think that I say the exact same thing that they hear from their parents and from their teachers that they probably already heard 3 or 4 times. But I am now saying it a couple days, a couple hours, a couple weeks later from when they heard it. Their brain has more time now to digest the information. I'm saying it in a different environment and they're hearing it in a different way. Then things click. And guess what? I get the praise. I'm not complaining. I really appreciate it. But I do think we got to give ourselves time and not feel the pressure that you have to learn things on a certain timeline. Learn what you can learn, and remember, do that spiral review. Do older math problems consistently every single day. Things will start to click. So maybe it's not you after all. Maybe just some of the ways you're trying to learn math is what the issue is. Now, even with all these tips, you still could be learning math wrong. If you want to know how you're actually doing the math wrong, well, that's going to be coming up in the next video.